boarded the plane in Alaska, her insecurities barely contained during the 200-mile drive to her hometown. Her reflection in her Coast Guard uniform in the rear view was one she'd never doubted she'd achieve. A third-generation Coastie, Skylar had been around the sea her entire life, fascinated by its mysteries, astonished by its paradoxical sense of danger and calm. She'd always known she'd follow in her father's and grandfather's footsteps. She just hadn't exactly wanted to follow those legendary footsteps back to the jagged shores along her hometown. Being stationed here meant that everyone would naturally assume she'd gotten this far this fast because of her family name, that her father or grandfather had had some influence over her unusually speedy career advancement. Nothing could be further from the truth. She'd busted her ass at the academy for 4 years, working harder than everyone else, putting in extra time and excelling in her courses. Then she'd worked alongside the experienced crew of the North Star cutter on the East Coast for 2 years, gaining her on-sea requirements to write the captain's exam. And she'd aced it. But maybe her last name had helped a little in securing the competitive spot at the academy in the first place. Nope. She squared her shoulders and gripped the steering wheel tighter as she fought against the self-doubt. She'd been accepted into the highly competitive program based on her transcripts, her letters of recommendation, not from anyone with her last name, and her own application letter. She'd earned her spot. Still, expectations were high, and she had a lot to prove. She was there now, and until she could request a transfer or apply for a new position, she'd have to make the best of it. Pulling off the highway, she drove along Main Street, which cut through the center of town. It was just after 9, and the shops were flipping their closed signs to open. Tourist season hadn't officially launched yet, but in the coming weeks, as the late spring weather turned milder, the town's population would explode, nearly tripling with visitors. By summer, all the local inns would be full, and the outdoor restaurant patios would be a constant flutter of laughter and loud music. The marina and beach would be hot spots for families, fishermen, and water sport enthusiasts. Skylar scanned the familiar surroundings as she drove. She'd lived in Port Serenity her entire life. She'd loved it there as a child, especially during tourist season. She craved the bustle and all the strange, exciting faces of visitors flocking there for the chance to see Selena for themselves. A glimpse of the serpent sea witch was a rare occurrence indeed, but not an impossibility, according to the old fishermen who were happy to recount their tall tales to anyone willing to listen, encouraging tourists to pay an outrageous price to get out on the water for the search themselves. It had been fun to see the renewed excitement on people's faces as tourists arrived in Port Serenity for the first time. Unfortunately, that excitement seemed to dull over the years, as Skylar had learned what this popularity had cost the town. As she'd realized that Port Serenity really only belonged to one family, the Wakefields. Their name adorned almost every awning on the main street. Wakefield's Pharmacy, Wakefield's Convenience and Grocery, Wakefield's Outpost and Fishing Supply. The wealthy Wakefields had reinvented the town, and in doing so, they basically owned it. It was no secret that the mayor consulted the family patriarch, Brian Wakefield, on every major decision. And no one opposed. Everyone appreciated the security the Wakefields' businesses had provided when the fishing industry had struggled to support families. The influx of tourists meant every local had a way to make a living, like her cousin Carly, who ran the bookstore and local museum. Restaurants, inns, cafes, and gift shops capitalized on the Sea Witch's popularity and likeness, making enough during tourist season to keep afloat all year. It was hard to fault the Wakefields. Unless, of course, you were a Beaumont. Skylar's own family had been generations of